They laughed when she walked in. Not the polite kind of laughter reserved for diplomatic missteps. Not the brittle kind that follows a bad joke. This was predator laughter. The amphitheater of the Galactic Joint War College was carved from black alloy mined from the shattered moon of Virex. 27 Empire banners hung from the vaulted ceiling, each representing a civilization that had conquered, absorbed, or annihilated someone else to earn its place. And into that hall of decorated monsters walked a human woman wearing an old brown earth jacket. It was scuffed and faded. The leather was cracked at the elbows. One sleeve had been repaired with visible hand stitching. A patch on the chest was torn, its emblem half burned away. To the cadets, polished armor gleaming, medals fresh and unearned, it looked ridiculous. A Varkan with silver plumage let out a sharp cackle. "Is the Terran instructor lost? The salvage yard is 2 levels down." A six-eyed Kethri leaned back in his chair. "Perhaps that is ceremonial fabric. Humans revere antiques." More laughter. The woman did not flinch. She walked with measured steps, boots heavy against the alloy floor. Her posture wasn't defensive. It wasn't aggressive. It was settled. Like a rifle placed carefully on a table. At the front of the chamber stood Commander Threx Ilderin, veteran of the border purges, survivor of the Skarn rebellions, architect of orbital suppression over 3 independent systems. His species, the Kthari, had never lost a recorded war. Until they met humans. He watched her approach. Then he saw the jacket. And something changed. It was subtle, barely perceptible. A slight tightening of the jaw ridges. A faint contraction of the throat sacs. But every seasoned officer in the hall saw it. The commander's breathing shifted. A Varkan cadet stood and raised his voice deliberately. "Instructor, did you borrow that from your planet's historical museum? Or is that how humans signal surrender?" The hall erupted. The woman stopped halfway up the central aisle. She turned slowly toward the cadet. Her eyes were brown. Steady. Tired in a way that did not suggest weakness. "What's your name?" she asked calmly. The cadet flared his plumage proudly. "Cadet Vorek of the High Nest." She gave a small nod. "Good. Makes it easier when I reference you in after-action reports." The laughter thinned. Commander Threx descended from the podium. Each of his clawed steps echoed. "Cadet Vorek," he said quietly, "you will remain silent." The cadet blinked. "Sir?" The commander ignored him. He stopped in front of the human woman. His gaze locked onto the jacket. There, barely visible beneath the damage, was a symbol burned into the leather, an eagle clutching a broken spear over a rising earth. The commander's voice lowered. Not out of authority. Out of memory. "That insignia," he said slowly, "was registered to the 9th Terran Expeditionary, the unit deployed during the First Contact escalation." A murmur rippled through the hall. The First Contact escalation was recorded in official archives as a limited conflict resolved through diplomatic stabilization. That was the polite version. The woman spoke evenly. "We called it the 11-Day War." Commander Threx's eyes did not leave the jacket. "That unit was declared destroyed." She met his gaze. "No," she said. "It wasn't." The temperature in the hall felt like it dropped 5 degrees. Commander Threx straightened slightly. "Cadets, you will address this individual as Instructor Elena Reyes." Shock rolled through the amphitheater. An instructor? This was the human representative sent to teach advanced asymmetric warfare. The woman stepped to the front without ceremony. She set a small data pad on the podium and looked out over the gathered future warlords of the galaxy. "You've been taught that humanity is impulsive," she began. "That we're emotionally volatile. That we escalate conflicts unnecessarily." Several cadets shifted smugly. All accurate. That disarmed them. "But what you weren't taught," she continued, "is what happens when you push us into a corner." The holoscreen behind her activated. Archival footage filled the air. Earth. Cities under bombardment. Kthari carriers blocking out the sun. Gasps echoed around the chamber. "You were told Earth surrendered," Reyes said quietly. Commander Threx closed one eye. We didn't. The footage shifted. Human soldiers in mismatched armor, civilian volunteers fortifying streets, improvised rail cannons mounted on construction cranes. We couldn't match the Kthari fleet in open combat, she said. So we stopped trying. A new clip. A Kthari battlecruiser spinning out of control after a chain of internal detonations. We studied your psychology instead. The cadets leaned forward now. Your doctrine valued overwhelming force. Decisive strikes. Intimidation. She tapped the screen. So we stopped giving you targets worth overwhelming. The next footage was chaotic. Human ships scattering into asteroid fields, transmitting false signatures, drawing Kthari squadrons into narrow gravity wells. You thought we were retreating. Another explosion filled the hall. We were hunting. Commander Threx's voice, low and unwilling, added. 3 fleets vanished within 72 hours. Reyes nodded. We boarded your command vessels. We sabotaged your drives. We infected your navigation cores with viral ghost signals that forced your ships to target one another. A silence fell that was heavier than the laughter before. A final clip appeared. A human in that same jacket, grinning into a cracked helmet cam. Behind him, a Kthari flagship reactor room. Captain Luis Reyes, Elena said softly. My husband. The cadets felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Wait. He and 23 others infiltrated the Kthari flagship during what you classified as a mop-up operation. Commander Threx's claws dug into the podium. They triggered a cascading reactor failure, he said. Elena's voice remained calm. No. They didn't. The footage resumed. Luis Reyes speaking directly into the camera. If you're watching this, Earth's still standing. He looked off screen. Tell Threx we appreciate the target practice. The screen filled with blinding light. The hall's holographic projection dimmed automatically as the flagship detonated. Elena turned off the display. The amphitheater was utterly silent. Commander Threx spoke again, slower now. We did not sue for peace because we were defeated. He looked at the cadets. We sued for peace because we realized humans were not fighting to survive. Elena's eyes hardened. We were fighting to teach. A Kethri cadet finally found his voice. Teach what? She looked at him. That invasion has a cost. Her hand brushed the sleeve of the jacket. The 9th Expeditionary was declared destroyed because none of them came home. A pause. But every member volunteered for the final operation knowing that. Another pause. We don't measure victory the way you do. The silver-feathered Vorex swallowed. What do you measure? He asked quietly. Elena's answer came without hesitation. Whether you think twice before coming back. Commander Threx lifted his head fully now. And we have not returned, he admitted. The weight of that statement echoed louder than any explosion. Reyes stepped back from the podium. This course, she said, is advanced asymmetric retaliation. Her gaze swept the room one last time. Lesson 1. If you see a human wearing something old in a war zone. Her voice dropped just slightly. It means they survived something you didn't. No one laughed this time. Because suddenly, that worn brown jacket didn't look primitive. It looked earned. And every cadet in that hall understood a quiet, uncomfortable truth. The Kthari hadn't lost the 11-day war. They had been warned. And humanity had only needed 11 days to make the entire galaxy listen. The first week of training was chaos. Not the, oops, someone dropped a plasma grenade, kind. Not the, mock drill gone wrong, kind. This was organized chaos wrapped in a human mind. Instructor Elena Reyes moved like a predator in a forest she had memorized before birth. Her cadets, Varkun, Kethri, Silnari, and others, had trained for decades in strategy simulations, war colleges, and hollow combat suites. They believed themselves untouchable. Arrogant. Superior. She tore that arrogance apart, one lesson at a time. Formation Delta 3, she barked, voice calm but precise, is obsolete. You think a human fleet retreats when cornered? No. You think we wait for your logic to fail? Wrong again. You will learn to die or adapt. A Kethri cadet snapped to attention. Instructor, with all due respect, humans don't. Don't what? She interrupted, stepping close enough that the cadet could smell the tang of old leather and ozone from her boots. Predict us? Exactly. That's the point. Rhea's training was brutal. She combined human guerrilla tactics with lessons scraped from every war manual she could find in the Joint Archives. She didn't care about rank. She didn't care about pride. Mistakes were punished, not with death, though some cadets whispered about disappearing squads, but with lessons so sharp they cut deeper than plasma blades. By the end of the week, half the cadets were begging for mercy in simulation chambers, their virtual squadrons shredded by maneuvers they hadn't even imagined. And all the while, Reyes walked past, jacket scuffed, hair pulled tight, eyes calm. One night, after a 12-hour session of zero-gravity ambush drills, she found Commander Threx alone in the observation deck. "You're cruel," he said, his voice quiet. Less the voice of the legendary Kthari warrior, more the voice of someone trying to understand fire without getting burned. "I'm teaching them," she replied. "You taught your cadets to underestimate humans. I'm teaching them to fear us for a different reason." He turned, claws tapping against the metal railing. "Fear? That's hardly the Terran way. Fear isn't the lesson," she said softly. "Respect. Understanding. And when that fails, revenge." He stared at her. For the first time, he didn't see a human instructor. He saw history. He saw the 9th Expeditionary moving through his nightmares. He saw the dreadnought burning, the boarding parties laughing, the reactors overloading. And he saw her, standing calm in a jacket that had been through more wars than his fleets had fought. "You're teaching them to fight like you," he whispered. "I'm teaching them to fight better than us," she said. The next day, a field exercise was scheduled on an uninhabited asteroid belt. 1,000 cadets were divided into warring factions, expected to outmaneuver each other using fleet simulations. Reyes arrived late. The alien fleets were massive, precise, predictable. Vorek was overconfident. Kethri strategists whispered among themselves. Reyes walked to the control console. She tapped a few keys. The asteroid field lit up with holographic projections. Then, slowly, deceptively, she started deleting all the control channels. Sensors blinked off. Comms dropped. Radar signals went dark. The cadets panicked. "Where's the enemy?" Vorek shouted. "They're everywhere," Reyes said calmly. "You just can't see them yet." The Varkan fleet scattered, smashing into projected asteroids. Kethri's ships collided. Panic spread like a virus. Every cadet realized too late. Their training hadn't prepared them for human thinking. Then she smiled, just a fraction. "Humans adapt. You didn't. You followed patterns. You assumed logic. You assumed rules." By the time the simulation ended, the surviving cadets were whispering in corners. The lesson was clear: humans fought dirty, unpredictable, clever, and they enjoyed it. That night, Vorek confronted her in the empty simulation chamber. You're insane," he said, feathers bristling. "That was impossible. No one could." "I'm human," she said, letting the words hang. "And we survive by breaking impossibilities." "Your fleet," he whispered. "The 9th, how could so few?" "You saw the videos," she said. "But seeing isn't understanding. It's not the numbers. It's intent. We don't fight to survive. We fight to change the game. To make you reconsider the cost of underestimating us." He swallowed hard. The room felt too small for the truth she carried. "You're teaching them?" he said, voice trembling. "Everyone," she said. "Cadet or commander. Everyone who steps into a battlefield where humans are involved. They will remember the cost of mocking what they don't understand." Commander Threx did not respond. Instead, he watched her walk away, boots echoing against the chamber. The jacket scuffed across the floor with each step, a rhythm that sounded like a drumbeat of history itself. That was when the comms lit up. An emergency alert from the outer colonies. A small Kthari patrol fleet had stumbled across a derelict human ship. It was old, battered, but fully operational. Its identification tags were hacked, unreadable by Kthari systems, but the symbols on its hull were unmistakable, an eagle clutching a broken spear over a rising earth. Vorek stared at the alert. That's impossible. That ship was destroyed decades ago. Elena Reyes turned from the console, eyes calm, hand resting on the jacket sleeve. Nothing is impossible, she said. Not for humans. Especially not for those who've survived the things we have. The alarm continued to flash. The cadets scrambled. The outer colonies contacted the command fleet. Panic spread like wildfire. By the time they figure out what they're seeing, she said softly, almost to herself, it'll already be too late. Commander Threx finally found his voice. You're using our panic as a lesson. She smiled. I'm giving them real history. One that the galaxy can't ignore. And one that reminds everyone who doubts humanity. Her hand tightened on the jacket sleeve. That some scars are weapons. The fleet in the asteroid belt had survived. But the lesson on the outer colonies had only begun. And somewhere in the dark void between stars, a human ship long thought destroyed drifted silently, carrying the ghosts of the past, and the promise of a future no one could predict. The galaxy, it seemed, was about to remember why mocking a human, or their history, was a very dangerous idea. The warning came quietly at first. Just a flicker on the comms grid, a blip too small for the Kthari High Command to take seriously. A derelict human ship drifting through uncharted space, its transponders disabled, hull scarred from battles that were decades old. Analysts dismissed it as salvage. Routine. A ghost story for cadets. But Elena Reyes knew better. She had spent a lifetime teaching cadets how humans think. How humans survive. How humans turn death into strategy. By the third day, the outer colonies were in panic. The ship, the Resolute, had slipped past multiple patrols, appearing and disappearing at impossible coordinates, broadcasting a single message in uncrackable code. We remember. Every Kthari fleet that moved to intercept vanished before it arrived. Satellites burned out. Communications failed. Sensor nets tangled. Every calculated response the aliens tried fell apart in chaos. Vorek was shaking. It's a phantom, he yelled. It can't exist. It's not supposed to. You're thinking like an alien, Reyes said softly, watching him from the observation deck. Humans don't fight like you. We improvise. We predict the predictable. And when you least expect it. She tapped the jacket sleeve. Scuffed leather. Faded brown. A symbol of survival. Of history. Of blood and fire. We strike. That night, the Academy's comm grid erupted. The derelict ship had engaged the Kthari patrol near Proxima Minor. 12 warships went in. None came out. Not one. Sensors recorded explosions. Energy signatures warped in impossible patterns. Survivors later described seeing shadows where ships shouldn't be, weapons firing from nowhere, maneuvers no known species could calculate. The news reached Commander Threx first. He went pale. The Kthari archives did not account for this level of ingenuity. Not for humans. Not for this human. Elena, he said, voice low, as if speaking louder would summon the ghosts of history. This is unprecedented. They underestimated us, she said. As they always do. A Varkan cadet whispered in the corner, barely audible. How many humans are aboard that ship? 23, she said, letting the words land. The ones you thought were dead. My husband among them. The rest? Volunteers for history. The cadets stared. The horror was palpable. They had laughed at a jacket. They had mocked its owner. And now, the ghosts of that mockery were moving through space, untouchable and lethal. Reyes walked to the simulation console. She projected the strike patterns across the hologrid. The cadets saw impossible angles, unpredictable flanks, ghost coordinates. Every fleet maneuver they had trained for failed against these humans. Vorek's voice cracked. They anticipated every response. Every trap. Elena Reyes smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Humans do more than anticipate. We rewrite the rules. You play chess. We set fire to the board, build new pieces from the ashes, and checkmate you before you even noticed the game began. Commander Threx clenched his claws, white with stress. You're not just teaching them tactics. You're orchestrating a live demonstration of human strategy. Against us. And against anyone foolish enough to underestimate humanity again, Reyes said. Remember the 9th Expeditionary? This is how we honor them. The comms grid flickered again. Another patrol fleet in the Betelgeuse sector reported similar incidents. Ships vanished. Sensors overloaded. Alien captains claimed they saw a fleet that didn't exist, ships attacking from directions that were physically impossible. The Academy cadets were silent, absorbing the lesson with fear, awe, and a creeping understanding of what it meant to be human. Vorek finally muttered, "They're everywhere. How do you even fight humans like this?" Elena's gaze swept the room. You don't. Not in the way you're thinking. You survive by respecting them. Or, you die trying to understand why they always have the advantage, even when it seems there is none. Commander Threx's voice was barely audible, trembling with a mix of rage and reverence. I see now why you wore that jacket into this hall. It was a warning. Reyes nodded. It's a history lesson, Commander. And history has teeth. The first strike had been surgical, devastating, and terrifying. But it was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, dismissed them as primitive, sentimental, emotional. Now, with a few ghosts and a single old jacket, humanity had made the first real statement. And every alien empire watching knew, the humans were not just surviving. They were teaching the universe a lesson it would never forget. Rhea's hand brushed the sleeve one more time. Every scuff, every tear, every repaired patch told a story of survival, cunning, and vengeance. Vorek swallowed hard. So this is what it's like, facing humans for real. Elena's eyes gleamed. Not yet. This, she said, is just a warning. Wait until they see what happens when humanity decides to finish the lesson. And somewhere, in the dark corridors of deep space, the Resolute drifted silently, carrying its ghosts, its vengeance, and the promise that mocking a human, especially one wearing history on her sleeve, was the deadliest mistake any civilization could make. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. But it was about to learn. The galaxy thought it had learned. It hadn't. The Kthari fleets scrambled, patrolled, and recalibrated. Sensor grids flared, mapping the outer colonies in meticulous detail. Every alien commander believed they were ready. They had studied the data. They had traced the Resolute's path. They had calculated the probabilities, the risks, the predictable human patterns, and they were wrong. Humans were never predictable. Instructor Elena Reyes watched the hologrid from the Academy's observation deck, her jacket sleeves rolled down over scarred arms. Cadets stood behind her, silent and tense. For many, this was the first time they had seen real fear in Commander Threx. The man who had once obliterated entire planets without hesitation now swallowed hard every time a new report arrived. Reyes tapped her fingers against the console. Phase 2, she murmured. Across several sectors, alarms screamed. Kthari battle groups, Silnari cruisers, Varkan dreadnoughts, all converging on what they assumed was the epicenter of the threat, were systematically cut off. Communications jammed. Navigation systems went haywire. Some fleets reported seeing phantom ships, hundreds, emerging from nowhere, firing in patterns no physics should allow. Vorek's feathers bristled. But that's impossible. No fleet could. Could what? Reyes said, leaning close. Follow the rules, you understand? We don't follow your rules. We make our own. The first real strike hit near a supply convoy outside Epsilon Eridani. 12 transport vessels, heavily armed escort included, vanished in seconds. No debris. No distress calls. Only a single human comm log transmitted before it died. We remembered your arrogance. Enjoy your paperwork. Commander Threx closed his eyes. They're ghosts. Fleet ghosts. How? Rhea's hand brushed the jacket. Every scuff, every burn patch, every worn seam radiated intent. Because we survive, Threx. We don't just fight. We teach. We punish. And we don't forget. By the third hour, the galaxy was in chaos. Systems thought secure were under attack. Human ships, long thought destroyed, slipped past patrols. Alien fleets tried to regroup, but every move was anticipated, countered, or exploited. The Kthari, the Silnari, the Varkun, they had all assumed humanity's firepower was limited, our tactics understandable, our behavior predictable. They had been wrong. The Academy cadets, watching the strike unfold, were learning faster than any simulation could teach. They saw ghost coordinates, decoy fleets, feints within feints. They saw how humans turn numbers into smoke, turning overwhelming forces into scattered wrecks. They saw the elegance in brutal, efficient chaos. Vorek whispered, voice trembling. It's beautiful. Reyes smirked. The universe calls it terror. Humans call it history. Then the climax came. A Kthari command fleet moved to intercept what they thought was the Resolute. 300 ships. Fully armed. Confident. Commander Threx himself transmitted authorization for the attack. The humans didn't wait. Instead, they appeared behind them. Above them. Below them. Ships seemed to phase in and out of existence. Every Kthari command protocol failed simultaneously. Explosions erupted from inside the hulls as sabotage drones detonated microreactors. Fighters appeared in impossible angles. Boarding parties boarded ships already crippled, leaving no survivors. The Kthari fleet tried to turn, to maneuver, to flee. Every option had already been accounted for. Every strategy anticipated. And then a broadcast, loud and clear, across all frequencies. You laughed at an old jacket. You mocked the survivors. You thought humans were fragile. You were wrong. History has teeth. Commander Threx dropped to his knees in the hollow briefing room. The galaxy's proudest fleets were annihilated within hours. Ships that had been hailed as invincible simply ceased to exist. Cadets wept, not in sadness but in awe. They had witnessed not just victory, they had witnessed genius, revenge, and the terrifying beauty of humanity. Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the Academy's observation deck, jacket scuffed, hands clasped behind her back. She looked at the silent cadets. Lesson complete. Remember this day. Not because humans are invincible. Her eyes scanned the holographic chaos of alien fleets burning in orbit. But because humans never forget. Vorak, trembling, finally found words. Will they stop? Reyes tilted her head. When history is taught, yes. Until then, we wait. And when the next generation underestimates us. Her hand brushed the sleeve again. They'll remember this jacket. Commander Threx, still pale, nodded slowly. You've changed the galaxy. Reyes smiled faintly, the weight of all the wars she had survived behind her eyes. No, Commander. The galaxy changed itself. It just forgot the cost of underestimating humans. Now they'll remember. The smoke cleared. The survivors of alien fleets retreated in silence. The galaxy would take years to rebuild. And somewhere out in the black, the Resolute drifted, carrying the ghosts of the past, the vengeance of the present, and the promise of every human who refused to be forgotten. The lesson had been brutal, terrifying, and complete. And in the center of it all, a human woman in a scuffed old Earth jacket simply walked away, leaving the galaxy to reconsider everything it thought it knew about humanity. Because one thing was certain, mocking a human, or their history, was now, officially, the deadliest mistake anyone could make. The galaxy would never forget the jacket. The galaxy would never forget the humans. And the humans? They would never stop.